So we are glad to be here today with you guys. I appreciate all of you attending and taking time out of your schedules. As he mentioned, I'm Opal, Jeff, and Kevin. I, up until about a month ago, supervised the QA laboratory on our second shift. We're a 3-shift operation. Actually, right now I'm still within QA. Amway has a lot of different opportunities, and I'm taking a development assignment to do project management for our StarLims software implementation for the QA laboratory, which is a big mouthful, but basically that's where we keep all of our laboratory data, and we're upgrading the software system, so I'm working on that right now. Kevin and Jeff are QA technicians in our laboratory, and if you guys want to introduce yourselves and maybe just talk a little bit about how long you've been with the company and what brought you to Amway.
My name is Kevin Eggebeen. I graduated from Michigan State in 2009. I've been working in the supply chain QA chemistry lab since September 2009, so for about 2 years. I've always been in Grand Rapids. I grew up here, so I wanted to stay local where most of my family was, and Amway is one of the few places that was hiring at that time. So, and I also enjoy the work, so. Of course.
My name is Jeffrey Halim, and I graduated from Michigan State University too at 2010. I have been with Amway since March 2011, and I actually like it at Amway because the work setting is very teamwork based, and pretty much we get work done on time. Like background-wise, I'm from Indonesia. Wonder if any of you know that, but it's Southeast Asia. So yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you. So basically in our presentation today, I'll take you through an introduction of Amway, where we began, where we're at. We'll talk a lot about the QA laboratory that we all work in. And I apologize, I forgot to give you a little bit of my background. I've worked for a couple of pharmaceutical companies as a technician and a scientist, and then I've been more recently interested in leadership, so that's where the supervisory role that I was doing and project management's just a fun side assignment. But and then we'll talk about some of the Amway product lines that we have there. Amway's a privately held company in Ada, so just east of Grand Rapids, where we're at right now. We're a leader in the direct selling, e-commerce, and business-to-business services. Started in 1959 with 2 friends. You may have heard of the DeVosses and the Van Andels. And so we're about a 50-year-old company. It started in their basement, and then they moved to this abandoned gas station that you see up in the upper left-hand corner. And today we're on about 300 acres in Ada. We have affiliates all over the world, different farms where we grow products for our health and wellness lines. So we're in the US, Mexico, Brazil. We manufacture in China as well as in the US. And as you can see by those red dots, we're just a very global company. More than 13,000 employees worldwide. More than 3 million owners and operators of their own direct selling Amway global business. We call those IBOs, independent business operators, in over 80 countries and territories. As I mentioned, our world headquarters is in Ada, just east of Grand Rapids. We also have a facility out in Buena Park, California called Neutralite. That's where our health and beauty production occurs, and also another one in Shanghai, China. In R&D and QA, so we are specific to the QA, supply chain QA side, but between R&D and QA, we have over 500 scientists, engineers, and technicians. People are number one at Amway. That's what makes us who we are. Our particular laboratory, now I'd like to share the floor with Kevin and Jeff. We have organized around lean manufacturing principles. I don't know if any of you are familiar with those, but basically in manufacturing, Toyota had a big input from this in the way they manufacture. It's all about efficiency, organization, structure, leaning out processes, making them more lean. And so we have, in our laboratory, we test raw materials, in-processed and finished goods, and we've organized them into different sections. The raw materials lean cell, the in-processed finished goods lean cell, a wet chemistry area where we do titrations, things like that, and then HPLC, and GC. And as I'm understanding, your program here has a lot of these different aspects. So we're just going to take the time and show you a little bit of the structure and some pictures from our laboratory. I don't know who's next.
So this is the raw lean cell. This is the area. And like this lean cell is usually intended to like screen for the easy test. And we usually finish like easy tests like odor, appearance, pH, and some identification like IR spectrum. We usually, in this lean cell, we just identify whether the chemical component fits what the description. Like, for example, we get ethanol. We just screen whether there's OH chain in there by using IR. This is the IR machine over here. And this is the thing that we use to make the KBR pellet for IR. And next slide. This is the wet chemistry. In wet chemistry, we do like, we assay some chemicals in there, like find out how many % by using titrations. So this is the titrations that we normally use. Like it's not the classic old school burette that you have to like, play around with the tap. You have to play around with the tap. You don't have to do that. Just one click. You can go dropwise, or you can go fast. Adjust the flow rate, and you can go fast as you want, and can also go dropwise just by going slower. And here's the UV vis. We usually use UV vis for identification purpose, also assay. Like for identification purpose, we usually do a spectrum scan. Like we set a wavelength range from like, for example, 300 to 800, and then we do a spectrum scan, and then we compare it to the standard that's already there for identification purpose. And then this Carl Fisher, we use Carl Fisher to actually identify how many % water in a liquid sample. And then next slide. This is the analyst working in wet chem. Yeah, this is like the titration basically. This another stuff is it's called titrino here, but it works the same. Like you don't have to, you can adjust flow rate as fast as you want. And then that's the furnace we use to identify the loss on ignition.
That furnace gets up to what, 1,000 degrees Celsius, so it gets pretty warm. It'll burn pretty much anything. Next, we're going to talk about the finished product lean cell. This is the area of the lab I started in when I first started working there. All these finished products you see up here, these are all finished packaged samples, so these would come after the entire batch has been run, and we have to test the packaged product. And we also get a sample of the shampoo or conditioner, whatever it is, in a bulk container while it's still in a mixed tank to verify it meets certain parameters before they start packaging. This is pretty similar to the raw lean cell. We kind of screen for the quicker tests that can be done, in under an hour, a couple hours. So you see pictured here, we have our brand new Mettler moisture balance. We use that for determining % water and a lot of detergents. And I think that's pretty much it. We use detergents and other cleaning products. There's a picture of one of our Brookfield viscometers. We have 4 of those to determine viscosity and thickness of various products. They all have certain ranges, and they need to be in those ranges before the product's packaged. This is just an overview picture of our finished product lean cell. You can see our viscometers are set up here. There's an analyst working on samples there. That's where we have our pH meter and balance. We do specific gravities is another test we do often in this cell, whether by hydrometer or a pincometer cup, just to determine density, which is another important parameter for filling because most of the fills are based on weight. So you need to know how dense your product is before you package it. HPLC.
Actually, I just wanted to add a little note here on this. Oh, thank you, yes. So this finished product lean cell, I mentioned the Lean Sigma model that we went after. About 60% of our products can go through this little area that's maybe 10 by 15 and be completely done with testing by the test of odor, appearance, pH, viscosity, spectrogravity that Kevin was mentioning. And so rather than structuring a lab, say, other labs that I've been to, you might have 10 different analysts taking a product and testing everything off of it. You just run them through. So Jeff mentioned output. That's absolutely huge when we have so much production going on, to have it be a quick and efficient process.
Yeah, definitely the finished product lean cell. These are tests that need to be done usually within under like a 2 to 4 hour period. Otherwise, we have problems with manufacturing. They're looking for real-time results because they're most times waiting for us to actually start packaging a product or start mixing the next batch. Yep. So this is the area of the lab I actually work in now. It's our chromatography area. This picture of me, I think. So in this area, we have 6 high-performance liquid chromatographers. We have 1 ultra-performance liquid chromatographer, and we have 4 gas chromatographers. So in this area of the lab, we do a lot of assay testing. So just looking at some of these products up here, we do sunscreen analysis on a lot of them, a lot of the makeups and lotions. So we assay the sunscreen components to make sure they're the proper SPF rating. It's kind of important. We also do a lot of the raw materials for identification purposes to make sure the raw is what it's supposed to be before they use it to make a batch. And also that the purity of the raw is what it needs to be before they mix a batch. Otherwise, you'll see low results once you compound everything together. This area, some of the tests are a little more lengthy. I think one of the longest test procedures we run takes like 26 hours to complete from start to finish. So this is kind of getting back to that lean mentality where if you have something that can be done in 2 hours, you're not going to want to hold it up behind something that's going to take a day and a half. But there are some tests in this area that also need to get out within under 2 hours, like alcohol tankers. When raw materials are brought in by truck, they have to be done efficiently and quickly. So that's one example of a test in this area we have to get done in a hurry. And I think that's it for the chromatography area. There's one more slide. Oh, yeah, okay. So here's an up-close picture of one of our Allegiant or GCs. This is the headspace analyzer. We use this for residual solvents testing. It's kind of cool. It hooks up to the GC. That's another really long test. And we got a picture of our AA over there that we use for metal analysis. Yeah, atomic absorption. So we use that for, again, makeup is another big one on the AA for the zinc oxide sunscreen active. We also test, well, we don't do titaniums on that, but we do limited nickel and other metals that we have the lamps for on our AA.
And we also use the furnace for the AA test too.
Yeah, so preparing zinc oxide and titanium samples, we pretty much burn everything off except for the metal, and then you figure out how much metal you got. This picture right here is just kind of an overview of the general product lines we have, and I have some examples from each one up here. So we have the Satinique, like personal care lines. So this is a lot of shampoo, conditioner, other hair care products, and I got some of those represented right there. Our LOC cleaning brand, I don't have anything from that, but that's glass cleaner, just general purpose floor cleaner. Pretty much any kind of cleaner you want, there's a LOC version of. We have a picture of our Neutralite stuff somewhere, I thought. Some right there. I have some of our sports twist tubes that you add to a bottle of water. That's an example of some of the Neutralite stuff that's made out in California. That's not actually manufactured in Ada. Everything else on the table is. And our number one selling product, Glister toothpaste. I have a sample of that right there, and the Glister oral rinse, just along the same lines. Anything else you want to add about the product lines? And it looks like, is that air filtration?
Yeah. Just a note here, way back when they began the business, the LOC that you see down in the lower left, I mean, we started as a soap company, so you can see that there's been quite a bit of expansion over the years in our product offerings and ranges, and consequently our R&D area in QA.
And here's the better picture of some of the Neutralite products. We make a lot of supplements, vitamins. We make these twist tubes, which are just like a sports energy drink. Make endurance cubes, which are like a gummy vitamin. We make these things called Brainiums that everybody loves. They're kid chewable vitamins, but everybody in the lab eats them because they're so delicious. Sometimes before we even finish the testing, which is probably not advisable. And we have our artistry line, which is our big beauty line. I have a couple of samples up there from the foundations and lip colors. We didn't really picture our shading area. That's another area in the lab that we didn't really cover. Whenever they first mix a batch of makeup or lipstick, they send samples up and we have to color match it with an approved standard to make sure, verify that the color is going to be the same. It's kind of important. If someone gets two different colors with the same name, it might cause problems. So that's another area in the lab that everyone enjoys putting makeup on to verify the colors. Not on our face, on the inner forearm, just to let you guys know. Okay, this is some more of the personal care products. So we have our G&H line, body series, so that's like deodorant, roll-on. There's a bigger picture of all the Satinique products. You can see the variability there. There's quite a few different products. And then our Tolsum line, which is kind of a men's personal care line, shaving cream, face wash, toning lotion, stuff like that. So and now we're back into LOC. You can see our brand new packaging for the Legacy of Clean line up there, which was introduced just recently, I think, a couple of years or.
Your anniversary, yeah.
Yep. So that's a relatively new packaging, same products, and they work well. Dish care, we make laundry, or that's not laundry soap. That's dishwasher detergent. We make that in our powder manufacturing facility. And then the oral care toothpaste, Glister. We make Sweet Shot, which is like a breath spray. I'll let one of you two field this one.
Oh. So obviously we're here because we're interested in the next generation of talent in terms of the chemistry QA lab, and wanted to come and talk with you guys, share a little bit about what we do and what we test and things like that. But just to, as a proponent, of course, of Amway that I am and we are, we really do have an excellent team atmosphere. Jeff mentioned that at the beginning. People work together, they help each other, that kind of thing. It's all about testing, bringing quality to the organization, and working together to make sure that happens. There's regular formal and informal professional feedback that you'd be given by your supervisor on a daily basis, sometimes weekly, and then formally once a year to determine how you're doing and how to advance within the company. the laboratory, you saw some of the pictures there. I've worked at a few different facilities, and this really is world class. The instrumentation, there's, he mentioned the UPLC. Some of these pieces of equipment are just fantastic in the things that they do. The software program that we're bringing in is a $1.5 million implementation. So they want to do and be the best of the best within the QA organization. And we have expert staff, Kevin and Jeff. I'm pleased to say I hired you both, didn't I? Yeah. And we've recently evaluated what kinds of education and background that we look at in terms of who we bring into the QA laboratory, because we wanted that expertise. And both of these guys, Jeff has a chemistry degree. Kevin taught at Grand Valley for State. Sorry, my apologies. No. And helped out in the classroom. So they both have the technical expertise that we needed. And as I've talked with Tommy, professor here, the classes that are offered, the program that's offered here is something that we would love to have as part of our organization within the QA laboratory. So that's a little bit about us and why it's a great place to work. I love it. I've been there be about 4 years now in January, and just opportunity after opportunity. It's a great place to work. Oh, sure.
With the whole team work and team building, there's a lot of people in the QA lab that have done this for their entire career. So you have people that have been there 25, 30 years. And as you saw from the differences in all our product lines, our testing is just as variable. So, for instance, in the wet chemistry area, there's probably like a couple thousand different test methods that we run on an annual basis. So there will be a lot of tests that you've never performed yourself and you're not quite sure about. There's always someone there that has done it, and that everyone's willing to kind of share that expertise with you to help you get through whatever the test is, no matter how complicated it seems. But I'd say that's one of the biggest challenges working in this environment, is that just the sheer variability that we have. We run so many different tests, and it definitely helps to have people that have experienced pretty much everything and that are willing to, kind of share and not keep that to themselves and watch you struggle, but they help you through the process. So I don't know if you can attest to that or not, but I guess he can.
All right. So if you're interested in applying, go to www.amway.com, and there's a careers section. You have to apply through the HR area. And if you'd like, I can give you, I forgot to bring any cards, but I can give you my name and email if you're interested in looking down the road as you're finishing up your program. So, oops, wrong way. So question time.
We actually report it as an out-of-specification, and then from out-of-specification, which means like they'll investigate from the scientists. Like usually, first investigation is the like a retest by original analyst, and then after that, you if it doesn't pass still, you forward it to like retest by another analyst, and if it doesn't turn out right, it's forwarded to the product developer. Is that right? Yeah.
It kind of depends on if it's a finished product or, sorry. Kind of depends if it's a finished product or raw material that doesn't turn out. If we actually confirm that it does not meet our standards or our parameters that we've set in our specifications, then raw materials often are returned to the vendor, and they're not used to make a product. Finished products is a little more difficult. Sometimes certain things can be adjusted, so if something's a little too thick, there's a lot of things that you can do to a batch while it's still in a mixed tank to thin it up or change the pH. And there's adjustments we can do that where you don't have to get rid of a whole 25,000 pound batch of soap. So it kind of just depends on what it is, on how we deal with it.
Yeah, these guys are in the thick of things when there is a material that is out of specification. It's interesting from a business perspective and compliance. So you have to weigh the risks associated we have to be compliant. You can't just continue to test something and hope that the result comes within specification. So we have, I believe our SOP on investigations is around 20 pages. Yeah. And then in terms of what steps to follow, it's a very defined procedure because we do have to make sure that the initial result, we have to determine whether or not it was valid, because there can be mistakes in the laboratory. You can measure a pH and then realize, oh, I didn't look at the specification. It was supposed to be a 10% dilution. So that result's not really out of spec, but then you have to go through and document it. So that if an auditor, FDA, customer, anyone were to come in and say, wait a minute, that result was out of spec, what happened? Why'd you release the product? You have to have justification around it. So.
Like you said, like what percentage of products don't meet standards?
Well, that's a number we're pretty familiar with the whole ooze process, I guess. Now, what are we on? Well, that's lab oozes, so I don't really know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll let
2 to 3% maybe.
I'll let you finish that. I just know what percent of,
Yeah, I don't have an exact number, but in terms of laboratory errors, this is a metric that we've been tracking the past 3 years, and we measure it in parts per million or out of specs per million tests that we do, and our goal is around 350 industry-wide. I went to a conference a couple of years back and asked some different companies across the states what their error rate was for laboratory error, because it's a measure that we need to keep our analysts accountable if they're just continually not reading the procedure properly or doing something like that. But anyway, 350 parts per million or out of specs per million tests, that really amounts to, in our laboratory, for the number of tests we do around 20,000 tests per month. And that means we would have about 4 potential laboratory errors. And that can include anything from an analyst not doing something correctly to an instrument error or something about the method that's not clear. So that's that rate. As far as manufacturing errors, that's not measured in a ppm metric per se, but those are typically and have been in the past about 3 to 1 in comparison to the laboratory errors. So I guess you could say about 12 per month. So, yeah.
When you have a test that takes like 26 hours, does it go from like shift to shift then as far as the test?
Yeah, we actually have 3 shifts. So the morning shift, I usually, if it takes 26 hours, we pass it off to different shift, and the test goes on. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's same. And some things like in HPLC, when they're running like that, you don't actually need anyone there for most of it. It'll just run itself. You just need someone there at the beginning and the end.
Still need to know.
Yeah. We definitely have to communicate that knowledge with the incoming shifts, and we have kind of a dry erase board that tracks what time each instrument's going to get done, and when that result has to be entered to see if it's okay. So our communication between shifts is pretty good. We have a meeting every day between shifts just to figure out what's going on, what's broken, if anything's not working correctly.
Excellent teamwork.
Excellent teamwork, as Jeffrey said.
Does Amway support any nonprofits, or do you have expertise?
Sure. Yeah, there's I am continually surprised by the number of different organizations that we give to, and you hear about periodically, but United Way is a big one. We have a program called 1 by 1. That's a global gifting and involvement and volunteer programs. The corporation sponsors its employees and encourages involvement in monthly kinds of volunteer days where they pay for you as an hourly or salaried employee to go volunteer somewhere. Junior Achievement's another one. I forget what the name of the playground building, Kaboom, maybe, something like that. So going to areas that have schools in need of playgrounds being built and in economically challenged areas. One of the things when I went out to visit Nutrilite, our California facility, I learned that in the Mexico and Brazil farms, when we hire employees, we also pay for their children to attend school, which in that area is something that's not common. So, that alone, I think, is a pretty neat opportunity for those people and being employed there. But yeah, I'm continually surprised at the different areas and some of the earthquakes, tsunamis, things like that, donations galore. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, definitely give back. Good question.
Yeah, you mentioned like you have different groups like wet and raw and finish. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like when you get hired, do you get to choose which one you go into, or you just start at a certain one and you kind of build up to like a higher one?
It's kind of based on needs, I guess, of the lab. Generally, people seem to start as either in the finished product or raw lean cell, and then after they get acquainted with all our information systems and data tracking and stuff, because those tests are pretty repeatable. I guess you do the same tests all the time. And then they generally move into a different area of the lab. But I mean, it's not uncommon for someone to start in wet chemistry too. So it kind of just depends on the needs, I guess, of the lab overall. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I started in wet chemistry first, so I just add to what Kevin said just now. I'm just confirming.
Yeah, a lot of times it's true what Kevin's describing. It's based on the laboratory need and testing. The QA laboratory, as we've mentioned, is more than just science, though, right? So it's based on business need, it's based on efficiency, and those kind of things. And to help us do those, or meet those goals, we have other systems in place. And part of the trick is not so much even the science, it's learning all of the new systems. So we have a system called QA Reporter that our manufacturing arm uses when they submit a sample. You have to learn that system and how it works and how to communicate back and forth. So there's our LIMS system, that's our database for results. There's a JDE system, which keeps track of inventory for us. There's another, what's that? Documentum, yes. That's where we find all our test procedures and specifications. So you have to learn how to navigate through all those, communicate back, follow SOPs, as well as test pH. And so it is generally a progression from a finished product lean cell or a raw lean cell toward the HPLC, GC, more complicated scientific testing. So.
When you're working in, say, like wet chemistry, are you doing tests on, like, could you do tests on hair care and then your next test could be on like oral care, or is it more just one product for section?
There's actually specific tests for every cell. So like for hair care, for example, we have zinc pyrithione for wet chemistry by using that titrando. So it's a titration, but we do it automatically. And then for oral care, there's a fluoride. So we got a fluoride meter that actually measure the fluoride content in there. Okay. And yeah, but everything is like specific to each department. I mean, like each cell, man.
Is it all happening in the same lab though?
Yes.
Yep.
We just have different cells that hold accountable for that.
And then, like, samples are kind of sorted by priority too. So when they first mix a batch and they send us that initial sample, that sample takes precedence over like one of these line samples that can sit on the shelf for a week before they're tested or something along those lines. So there's a lot of, you have to know where your priorities are. It's usually you're not looking for samples. You're usually trying to figure out which ones you have to do first, because lately we've been pretty busy. So. And raw materials are also set on kind of as a needed basis, and they all have due dates, and we're working hard to meet those goals for the dates when the material planners want to use those raw materials to make a new batch. So it's kind of a lot of coordination involved to get everything done on time so they can actually use what they need.
There's always stuff to do.
Yeah.
Are all of your new products invented at Amway, or
Not all of them. That's a short answer. We also have a portion of our company that's what we term buyouts. So if Neutralite, the health arm says, we want to mimic a product that we see out in the marketplace that's, I'm not talking copywriting, but just say we wanted to offer these gummies, chewable gummies. We weren't the first ones to come up with gummy bears or a vitamin, within that. But we might look for a manufacturer who makes those and then bring them in, test them, and sell them. There, as we mentioned, in our R&D and QA, there are over 500 scientists and engineers and technicians. So there is a huge portion that does look at development of products. And we're receiving, I would say, almost once a month in the laboratory, a brand new product. There are launches of hair and skincare lines, and cosmetic lines that will be coming up. And then what the QA laboratory has to do is prepare for those. So we have to make sure that our raw materials we have specifications to test against. We have to make sure we can meet all the requirements of those tests, that kind of thing. We have to have standards in the laboratory of the finished goods. So we have to work with R&D, a group called Process Quality Improvement, product development, all those people to coordinate those, that once it gets into the laboratory, when that person's sitting in the finished product lean cell and they need to test odor, appearance, pH, everything in the system has to be there, the standard has to be there, and they plug it through. But as you can imagine, sometimes there are gaps, and it doesn't flow as smoothly as we'd like it to.
Down in our R&D lab facilities, we don't work down there very often, but we do have to go down to their lab once in a while to use something. They do have, they got a bunch of plaques on the wall for packaging designs, stuff that has been patented by Amway or Amway scientists. So they're
This is a bunch. We're talking
no, yeah, like
hallway.
a hallway full of patents. A lot of them are packaging components, just stuff specific to a lot of our products, like some of the LOC packaging and a lot of the powder packaging. So walking down there, it's kind of cool to see all those, patents that are originated, in our company.
How often does new technology come into the lab, like machinery?
Since I've been there in the last four years, we acquired a new UPLC. That Mettler moisture balance, 2 new GCs. Okay, yeah. There's constant maintenance of the instruments that we do have, and sometimes upgrades to portions of the equipment. The laboratory itself wasn't finished when I came in 2 years ago. They built this completely new one. Before that, they had a separate laboratory for raw materials, a separate one for in-process and finished goods. And they, again, with that leaning mentality, how do we do this better and more quickly to support manufacturing, they put those 2 laboratories together. So that laboratory itself is less than 4 years old. So. Oh yeah. Go ahead and talk to those.
Yeah, I don't have too much experience with it. I know they're toying around with the idea of getting an XRF for metals analysis with X-rays. So it's equipment that's used in the Neutralite plant, and we're gonna start manufacturing some protein powder and protein components at our manufacturing facility in Ada. So they're toying with the idea of getting that for some metals testing, which would get rid of our AA, I believe. So they're always, I guess, looking at new ways of doing things quicker.
I think we're getting a multi-channel pipetter, like the robot thing. I think we're getting that sometimes in the future.
We got all kinds of stuff on our way.
We're totally geeks, aren't we? Because we're so excited about it when it comes in. With that XRF, you mentioned getting rid of the AA. So that process where you have the muffle furnace, the digestion, we've had issues because sometimes you can get spitting out of the platinum crucibles. You can break the platinum crucibles. They're extremely expensive. I don't know how much they are per $2,500 per just a little platinum cup. And this XRF technology not only eliminates time but also cost. It's literally you take the same kind of analysis you need to do with AA that could take a shift, maybe 2, and you're scanning. That's it. Just you're done. So it's pretty amazing, really.
I graduated with my bachelor's is actually in biology. I did teaching assistant for undergraduate chemistry, general chem for 3 years while I was at State.
Yeah, State.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I graduated from Michigan State too with biochem degree, and I also did some internship in biodiesel institute actually.
And so as far as Amway goes, like, does the Chemtech program here is 2 years, is it, I mean, what's the competitive edge, like, over having 4 or 2 years?
I mean,
I mean, do
is-
you hire a lot?
yeah, I was going to say this. She would be the one, the hiring manager.
Yeah, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but this was one of the reasons that I wanted to come and talk to you guys and talk about this program. And I learned a little bit. When did I last visit? It was 6 months ago, maybe? Yeah. Something like that. But we were also evaluating what exactly do we want and what fits for the job responsibilities that we have. And this program fits extremely well. The other aspect of it, in terms of upward mobility, I mean, if you're interested in running a lab someday, Amway offers tuition reimbursement once you're a full-time employee. So if you're interested in going back for a chemistry major or a master's, that kind of thing is paid for. I think, I don't know what the cutoff, $2,600 a semester, something like that?
Yeah, it's like 5,000 something a year.
Okay. So there's opportunities for growth in that way. But as a starting entry-level technician, if you have the familiarity that you would coming out of the 2-year program here, you would be very well suited. So.
I was to ask you a question about your standards. I assume some of them are set by the FDA, and so you're following maybe FDA requirements. But for some of the cosmetics, are those like internal standards, like we need to meet this quality?
Maybe, go ahead.
I was going to say, a lot of the cosmetics are actually drug products, depending on the market they're sold. So they are regulated by like CGMP, good manufacturing practices for the FDA. Obviously, the powdered laundry soap's not going to be regulated as heavy as something that's called a drug or toothpaste, by the FDA. But yet, we generally follow the same guidelines for pretty much all of our products, regardless of whether they're drugs or non-drugs, especially with investigations. I know that it used to be a little different, but that answer your question, I guess? Okay.
Does Amway have plans for expansion? If so, what are some of the goals?
I'll let you take this one.
Boy, plans for expansion. We set from management perspectives. There's global business goals, there are departmental goals, and then there are goals within just our QA laboratory. But when I came in 2008, there was a corporate goal of 12 by 12, so 12 to become a $12 billion company by the year 2012, and then the economy tanked. But actually, we're not there, but we're pretty close right now. We're a $9+ billion, so we went from 7 at that point in time to 9+. So there are strategies in that overarching sense. I would say we're more defined right now, or the perspective that I've gotten from my position and working in the laboratory focuses more on us, and so some of the goals that we've had are reducing laboratory error, was a huge one, and then dispositioning product on time. So Kevin mentioned, manufacturing's waiting on something. So he mentioned also the raw materials that are set for certain due dates and whatnot. So we measure right now, are we meeting those goals? And then that's part of the performance feedback, right? If Kevin's doing a lousy job and he gets, 0 products out every day for the week, which he doesn't, he's fantastic. But then, we're not meeting those kind of goals. But as far as overarching, like I said, we're a global company, and so we have different portions of the company monitoring our growth in every country that we're in. So.
quickly, like I mentioned with the protein powder plant.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
So expansion, our local campus, we're adding another manufacturing facility. It's just moving from California to the world headquarters in Ada for protein powders and protein supplements. It's a pretty big new production area that comes with its own microbiology lab. So we have a microbio lab up in SCEQA, but they're going to have their own just due to the different testing that's required for the protein food products. That's also going to increase the volume of raw materials and finished products that we see in our chemistry lab too. So that's one area that our local campus is growing.
What's the starting pay of a QA?
Good question.
I'll let her field that.
It's comparable with industry. I'm actually not sure if I can share that, but it is pretty comparable with industry, and I can state that with confidence. I began years ago at Perigo, and it's pretty comparable with them. I've worked for Corium, and I would say, you're going to be in the over 20, probably under 40 range. So, good question. With the possibility of overtime, yes. We often work 6, sometimes 7 days a week, depending upon manufacturing's needs. So we do also do work for contract customers. I don't know if we've mentioned that, really. So other companies will say, can you make our product for us? And I was astonished at some of the large companies that we produced for when I got in. So if our contract sales group makes an agreement with a company and says, we'll produce X, 40,000 units of this product for you, that means we need to stay and test, because they might be running 24 hours a day, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. So.
We're gonna be there.
Yeah.
To support.
And some of the quirky benefits for working for Amway, you get free soap. And I haven't paid for laundry detergent in 4 years. It's fantastic. I have 4 children, so free soap.
Shampoo you can use.
Yep. There's a company store that has our products in it too that you can purchase at 50% off the price. So,
So if you're working,
yeah.
they need 6 to 7 days a week, is that required?
It is for our full-time. We alternate Saturdays. And most of the time, depending upon, we ran really thin in terms of staff on our shift for a while, and Saturdays were, I'm not going to kid, a pain. But as we view ourselves as a customer service department to manufacturing, so they're going to be there, we got to be there for them. And so sometimes it was difficult. Most of the time, we have volunteers now. You guys can probably speak more honestly to that.
I've worked like 4 or 5 in a row before, but I volunteered for it.
I planned to work like 5 in a row, but somehow someone took my shift, so.
No, yeah, that's always available for us, and we do alternate. There's talks about working 7 days a week here soon, so working every couple weekends is really it's not that big a deal, I guess. And depending on what shift you're on, we work second shift, so a lot of times on Saturdays we can get out of there by 7 o'clock, so we only work like half a day. So
We should keep that quiet, man.
she knows about that.
Is there any kind of shift premium?
Yes,
For the off shifts, I don't know if it's 60 cents.
60 cents an hour or something.
Yeah.
So that's for second and third shift. So
What do you guys like most about the lab?
I definitely like that every day I'm not testing the same thing over and over again. There was a time when I was in that finished product lean cell for about 6 months, and by the tail end of that stint, I was ready to do something else besides pH and viscosity and odor and appearance. So it is nice not knowing what you're going to do every day, knowing what finished product or raw I'm going to have to test when I get there today at 2:45. Hopefully something exciting. Probably glycerin or sorbitol, though.
I like the people in the lab. Like, they're very fun. Like, say we are teamwork oriented and stuff. And then also, like, yeah, you you go into the lab, you never know what test you're gonna do, because we have like 1,000 procedure to follow, and you never know what you're gonna do. Like never run out of stuff to do, so you pretty much keep yourself busy. That's part of it.
There's always work to do. That's one thing for sure. What's your favorite part, Opal?
My favorite part of the lab is when it's clean. We have audits quite frequently, so that is kind of a joke, but I do like things neat and tidy. When I was a technician, I think I enjoyed probably more the repetitiveness of things, ironically enough. So it takes all kinds, right? Because we do have challenging, never before been done, lots and lots of USP testing. And then we have methods that you can just pump out, 10 samples at a time kind of thing. As a supervisor, I enjoy the strategy of working with my team, getting great people working for us, like these guys here, and then structuring our testing strategy, setting our goals so that we can get better and better.
Well, you might not know this question, but what's like the women to men ratio?
I don't know overall what it is. What's that? Lots of women? Yeah. I honestly have no idea. Within our QA laboratory,
Second shift, two women.
you ask these guys, there are fewer women on second shift.
Yeah, it's, I don't know about site-wide. I know a lot of IVOs, I think that tends to be
Yeah.
more female dominated, if I remember from some meeting, or I just might have made that stat up, so don't
Yeah.
quote me on that.
I think Amway probably reflects the Midwest versus something you'd see on East Coast or West Coast. So the ratio of men to women in leadership is higher, but even some of that kind of thing is changing. We recently hired maybe a year or two ago, Candace Matthews as a marketing VP, and she was from Coca-Cola, and a couple of other VPs, and Catherine Ehrenberger, R&D QA VP. So in the higher ranks, I've seen changes in that ratio. So.
Other questions? Let's thank our speakers then.
Thank you.